now.
Well, I got 15 seconds. Dan not gonna be with us? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April meeting of the City Council. Councilman Phillips will not be with us this evening, so we will call our meeting in order and carry on. First order of business will be the approval of the minutes for March 10th, 2015 regular council meeting, March 23rd, 2015 special departmental work session, and March 24th, 2015 special departmental work session.
I'll make a motion to be approved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed vote no. The minutes stand approved. Okay. Kip, welcome back.
How are you?
Good. Hope you are.
Here we go.
Thanks for restriping the road.
Yes. Yeah, we were hoping to
What's up?
get patching and potholing done this week, but everyone here has seen what the weather's done. So as far as this week, not much to talk about except mud and rain. But I'll update you on a few things based off of some notes I made, and then a few upcoming things. The 18-inch sewer line that we've been talking about for a while, they along the old 321 road should be done this week and would have been done if we not had some rain the last few days. So kind of questionable as whether they will get done by Friday or not. We'll just have to see what the weather does. But once that sewer line's connected up along the old 321 business road that's abandoned, they'll be able to start the wall work, and the sewer subcontractor will move down between Tanger and the old intersection and complete the sewer, 18-inch sewer down to Tanger. We'll be able to tie that new 18-inch in and abandon your old 12-inch sewer line. So getting real close on the sewer work. Other things continuing on, they've been working on storm drainage work around the old intersection just above Tanger and along old 321, as well as completing drainage work up from across from the golf course along what we refer to as Wall 19, going out towards Green Park Inn. And speaking of that wall, the rock masons are getting real close to completing that wall. They've actually put up tarps and worked in the rain to try to get that rock finished on that wall. So I think if they have a good week or so, they should be finished with that wall by sometime next week and complete that rock veneer on that wall. The mass grading has continued down at Blackberry and Condos whenever the weather is allowed. We have to put a lane closure in for that work, so whenever it's foggy or rainy, we really can't do that because of the safety of the motoring public. So that's hindered work a little bit going down the mountain. Fine grading beginning below the Subway restaurant. We had it on the schedule to begin this week, and of course you can't fine grade mud, so we're kind of waiting for the pattern to change there too. But we'll get some sunshine, we'll get the fine grading going below Subway to start tying all that in and getting it ready for asphalt. I already mentioned the sewer work completing, so that lines us up, or the sewer work completing along the old road bed, so that kind of frees us up to get the wall excavation started for those two walls that go in the middle of where the old road used to be. Those walls are about, the two together are about 540 feet long, and they actually physically tie together. So we always refer to those as 37 and 38 together. But anyway, the excavation is scheduled to begin for that wall next week. And when they start the construction of that wall, just in case you get some questions about it, they will start with the basket wall, like what you see there now. That is the actual structural part of that wall with the reinforcement behind it. But then they will pour a form liner face against those baskets, and it will match the wall that you see like at Food Line and below Samaritan's Purse. So there'll be a lot happening in that area to get those walls built. As you mentioned, the striping's complete. We've got some pothole and patching scheduled. The potholes at Sunset Drive have really got noticeable, so we'd like to get those filled soon, as well as the rest of the project. Looking at a few longer-term goals, we're still looking for mid to late summer to get traffic switched to what we call the right side, which would be the side opposite of the Holiday Inn and Woodlands Barbecue, and in that area, it's the side opposite. If we can get the traffic switched over there, then that will open up quite a bit more of the underground utility work that needs to go on with the duct bank system and the storm drainage that will actually go in where existing 321 is now. So still looking to get the traffic switched so we can open up that work in the summer, as well as getting the completion of these walls I've been talking about at the new intersection of 321 Business, so we can get some width and go into that next phase at that intersection to hopefully help improve some traffic flow, and still anticipating that for maybe mid to late summer also. Just a few things to note too. In contractually, there is some work at Green Hill Road that has to be completed during the month of June, and the phasing in the contract says we close Green Hill Road for 3 days. So that's coming up in the month of June. It's a little ways out, but just something to be thinking about. And then along those lines, once we get traffic shifted to the right side along 321, all these other sidelines such as Ransom Street, Church Street, Sunset Drive, there's contract phasing in there where we'll actually shut those roads down for, I think it's about 21 days. They all won't be at the same time, but they'll get closed, built, detour put in, and then we'll get those open back up. But I can see some of that coming later this summer and early fall also. So that's the notes I have. Any questions?
Kip, I felt personally like we had a good meeting with DOT last week.
Good.
And I was just wondering if you'd had time to meet with them, discuss some of our problems and some of the solutions that maybe we had talked about.
Doug just briefly spoke to me on the phone about the meeting and what you guys talked about, but as far as us getting together, no, he's not had the opportunity to do that. But had discussed, some of the same concerns I think you mentioned to him that we had talked about in the last meeting and that Scott and I have talked about in the past. I think the critical issue is just getting some of these walls built, especially at the 321 intersection, so that we can create some extra width to make some improvements there.
Well, I told him that it didn't bother me that much, but as far as like in the mornings, I leave out about 5:15 and I hit that red light and it's staying red for, probably close to between a minute and 2 minutes long before it changes, and no other traffic coming. And
that's coming out of the Cliff Dwellers Drive?
That's coming toward Cliff Dwellers, coming by Chatola up, and you'll sit there.
I'll make a note to check that.
And he said he was going to check on that.
Okay.
I know that, he had talked about we'd lengthen it to try and get the 321 traffic moving, longer, but he also felt that light should activate when nothing else is coming and I pull up. So
it should. There are some maximum and minimum times recorded in there. We'll go in and just check those and make sure it's operating correctly.
I'd just like to say, Kip, I was at the meeting with Doug and Ray, DOT. I was impressed with their seeming concern about our widening fatigue here in town. And they're not the big elephant out there that doesn't care. They do. They sent 3 engineers here, not 1, 2, but 3. And we met for quite a while, and they gave us some reasons for some delays, which was not DOT's problem. You know what they are. We won't talk about it.
Yes.
But I asked them directly, because I've been asked this. Is Maymead and Pacilio and Grogan performing as they should? And they absolutely, all 3 said yes.
Yeah, we really had I've been here a little over a year now. Last year really had a lot of delays that were out of the control of anybody, and it was just a lot of design issues, constructability issues. We feel like coming into this year that we've got a lot of those resolved. So we personally have a lot of high expectations to see quite a bit accomplished this construction season, and that's what we're shooting for. So I'm optimistic about this year. It was, just to put it in perspective, the amount of underground work going on this project is not normal compared to other projects. When you think of all the utilities going under the ground, we're putting in about 18,000 feet of underground concrete duct banks, and those duct banks have anywhere from 5 to 35 conduit running through them. So you're talking, you know, 250,000 to 500,000 just feet of conduit on this job to eventually put the overhead utilities in that. So when you start dealing with those things underground and you hit conflicts with the storm drainage, and they've had to redesign the duct bank, kind of threw off the phasing and the sequencing of the project. But we do feel like we've got a lot of that resolved, and looking forward to moving forward this year with those things behind us. So yeah, we're optimistic too.
Can you give me a little more information on closing Green Hill Road?
Yeah, it's it'll be closed down close to the intersection. We have a 72-hour window to perform the work, and that's to install storm drainage, as well as to get some of the widening done and the asphalt done at that intersection. We will advertise that well in advance with the signed detour. Right offhand, I cannot remember what that signed detour is, but there will be signs and appropriate notice put out at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Kip, when you get the potholes and everything, when the guys are fixing that, when you get some decent weather, turning off of 321 onto Main Street right at Cliff Dwellers, I don't know if Doug ever told you that if you could smooth that off a little bit, where people turn in, it's
turning into the Cliff
turning
Dwellers
off
Drive.
of Valley Boulevard onto Main Street, it's very bumpy.
Okay.
And if it was
Yeah, we'll take
smooth,
a
I
look
believe
at
people
that.
would move a little quicker. And when do you think, approximately, you think you'll be trying to do the shift of traffic along where Woodlands, Outback, and all that is?
I really think we'll be somewhere in July, maybe towards middle to end of July is my hopes. I don't need weeks like this week where it's raining every day, but
We don't either.
but if we can get out of that pattern, that's really the goal that I have, and the goal that our subs have too.
Okay, when you do that, I know you've noticed along there that we allow some of the businesses to put auxiliary signs up. Would you work with them to put them over to help people know where to turn?
Yeah, we'll
to
be
get in?
glad to do that, because we will have to tie those drives in, and it's going to be kind of a long way to get across the old road and get ramped up to the new road. If you've noticed, there's quite a bit of elevation change out there, so we'll have to do quite a bit of work just to get those drives tied in. But,
Okay, if you could just
yeah,
help them.
we'll be glad to help them any way we can
Okay, thank you.
with exposure.
Dave?
Yeah, could you elaborate on the projected closures of Sunset, Ransom, and Church? What that means for 21 days? I mean,
Yeah, it's really to improve those streets as they enter the new highway. There's widening to go on, there's curb and gutter, asphalt wedging, which is just extra depth asphalt to get tied into that new elevation. And because those side streets are tight, there's just not enough room to really do that work and try to maintain even one lane of traffic at a time. So therefore, in the contract, DOT says you can close the road, and once you start, you have to have it completed within 21 days and open back up, or potential of liquidated damages. So for each one of those instances, 21 days is what's in the contract. But again, there'll be notices and signed detours put out at that time. And there are restrictions about, you can't have every one of them closed, because then you would have nowhere to detour. So they've got it laid out where, we'll do it in a sequence to make sure that people have a good detour route in and out.
and for that 21 days, would they be closed for 24/7, 365?
Yes,
Or 24/7?
yes, they would be. They would be.
I can see
Yeah.
that Sunset would be an issue there.
It is, and I think part of that at Sunset is, and you've seen the great elevation change there. We've talked about that before at the council meetings, but there's just so much work to get it up to that elevation. That would probably be the toughest one out of all of them. So, but that's pretty good ways down the road. Just kind of wanted to lay that out there for a kind of a heads up later in the summer to early fall is what I'm thinking.
And when you do that, would you be sure to notify Scott fairly far in advance so we could put it on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Let as many people know
Yeah.
as possible.
We will.
Any other questions? Thank you, Kip. See you next month. Hope it's nice and dry for the next
I hope so.
several
We hope
months.
so too.
Okay, Scotty, our consent agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have 4 items for your consent agenda this evening. One is a tax release and refund in the amount of $159.65. The second is a resolution declaring surplus property and authorizing disposal. Included in that is some sewer equipment, a jetter trailer, a scale used to weigh cardboard at the old recycling facility, 6 backhoe buckets, and 1 core drill for manholes. Third item is a budget ordinance amendment to account for various items. There's a wide variety on there. A couple that I'll mention include allocating funding for the North Carolina Department of Justice grant funds to go towards our new police server. That's a 75% grant, and the town will pay 25%, and those funds are already budgeted. And the fourth item is for council consideration and approval of the Blue Ridge relay date of Friday, September 11th, 2015. And in this one, they're looking to locate in the pool parking lot, consistent with what they did last year. And they worked very well with us, and we had no issues. So those are the 4 items for your consent agenda this evening.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? If none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. The motion carries. Thank you. Okay, public hearings. Amendment to land use code. Kevin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Planning Board recently forwarded a draft ordinance recommendation that would have allowed accessory apartments in the R15 and the RMH zoning districts. At the March 10th meeting, Town Council tabled that discussion and instead requested that the Planning Board review and consider a draft ordinance that would provide an exception to the non-conforming section of the Land Use Code. The exception, if approved, would allow expansion of the principal residence on current non-conforming properties with accessory apartments, but would prohibit expansion of the apartment. An accessory apartment is a dwelling unit in addition to the primary residence that's limited to 25% of the gross floor area of the primary structure and also limited to a maximum of 750 square feet. Accessory apartments are currently not allowed in R15 single-family zoning district. This amendment would not change the fact that accessory apartments are not allowed to be constructed or expanded anywhere in R15. This code amendment would affect only those properties with existing accessory apartments that are considered grandfathered by the ordinance. In addition, this draft ordinance does not affect the rental status of non-conforming accessory apartments and proposes no changes with respect to short-term rental activity. If this ordinance receives a favorable consideration, staff would recommend that at this time, no further consideration be given to allowing accessory apartments in R15 zoning. Planning Board met on March 19th, and their recommendation was approval of the draft ordinance that's been presented before you. I will read that section. This is in our land use code, section 16, 8.3, 8.3.1 actually, with respect to extension or enlargement of non-conforming situations. And this is an exception to the section above that prohibits expansion of non-conforming uses. And because if you have a single-family residence that has an accessory apartment, has had it for years, that property as a whole is a non-conforming use. So this exception would be added to the code and would read as follows. If a non-conforming use of land is due to a property having a single-family residence with an accessory apartment, then the principal structure may be expanded and other accessory structures may be constructed as long as the accessory apartment or additional dwelling unit is not expanded in any way. Further, no expansion of the principal structure shall result in enlargement of a non-conforming situation with respect to setbacks or building height. So for example, if you had if the single-family residence, the primary structure, they want to expand a deck or add on to the house, they can do so as long as they met the applicable setbacks and building height for that district. That's all of the staff report. Be glad to answer any questions, fill in any blanks if possible.
Will you go in just a little bit, just for everybody, to the parking, should they enlarge it, that the parking still has to be kept for the apartment, unless like everything as it was?
Right. In an existing situation where you had the house, an accessory apartment, whether it be above a garage or in the basement of that principal structure, if they were going to expand the house, they would still have to make sure that they had sufficient parking for the use, which would be 2 spaces for the principal residence and 1 space for the accessory apartment. And we would not in any way introduce parking out on the street. So that would have to be consistent with our parking standards.
Go back to, you said, I can't remember exactly, Kevin, you were talking, not real fast, but I think you used the term "do it now." You know what I'm getting at? If we pass this tonight and someone decides in 2020 that they miraculously have an apartment, how's that going to play in this thing?
If someone came to us and made, they would need to present evidence that they have an accessory apartment that had been established prior to now. It would have to be established, but we're not allowing any new ones in R15. And they want to expand.
That's my question, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
If someone is creating a non-conforming or creating an accessory apartment and they're not allowed today, they would be violating, one, the building code, they would be violating the land use ordinance too. So they'd have to get a permit. So that's at the point that they apply for a permit, we verify what are you building. If you're want to try to build an additional dwelling unit, then we would prohibit that. We wouldn't allow them to build that. All we can do is enforce the ones that come before us or that we discover.
And Alan, have you reviewed this? And is your understanding nothing concerning short-term rentals is included in this at all?
That's right.
Okay.
Any questions, Kevin?
Well, I move it be approved.
Okay, is any public comments or questions? Public have any?
Make a
No
motion
comment.
to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second to close the public hearing. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries. Now we will entertain a motion for action.
I'll move it be approved, but I do have one further question. I've had an amazing number of calls from realtors. I was surprised. And it boils down to they are concerned, will this affect property values in R15? There's no really answer to that. That is, market values become perception and lots of other things, location and everything. But what's your opinion about people that would ask you that question?
I wouldn't have an opinion on the market value. I just know this does not expand a non-conformity, except for the fact that the principal structure, the main house, can be added to and improved. So in that sense, it may improve the value of that property, and maybe it brings all of them up. I don't know, but it just gives. And we've had this situation, a couple of requests, and we said you just can't expand, and this gives that opportunity just for the main house.
That's a good point. Expansion could improve.
Yeah. you're okay with that, to continue with your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, further discussion?
You have a triple second.
Triple second? Okay, is any further discussion? Not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carries, thank you very much. Next public hearing, amendment to sign ordinance. Kevin?
At the March 19th meeting, the planning board discussed potential amendments to the sign ordinance pertaining to the area along 321 with a posted speed limit greater than 35 miles per hour, as requested by town council. We actually studied a couple other months before as well, and we studied it a little bit more in depth in March. The planning board looked at the entire 321 corridor and the 15 properties that front along the highway. The area under consideration is mainly from the northern edge of the current corporate limits, extending through north along 321 through the extraterritorial jurisdiction. It'd be what's identified by the blue line. That section there is what we're talking about. There are a few properties along this stretch that are in the town's corporate limits, including Roots Restaurant and the former New River Inn property. In addition, satellite annex properties owned by Appalachian Regional Healthcare, and the remaining properties are zoned general business, but they still remain in the ETJ. A large portion of this area is also controlled by the National Park Service and Blue Ridge Parkway. So, Roots Restaurant, New River Inn, actually the Rock Water Plant, the hospital site here, part of this fronts along 321, Apsky Mountain, the vacant property right across Evanston Road from them, Alpine Acres Motel, Blowing Rock Lodge, Blowing Rock Investment Properties, Alpine Village Cabins, I think that's what it is. And this property here that runs up to this subdivision. That's really about it. A lot of the other property, Park Service is not affected. Some of the others are below the road or right on that cliff. Some of these slides identify the area we're talking about. Blowing Rock Investment Properties, Alpine Acres. And this shows how tall their signs are and their approximate square footage. This is Blowing Rock Lodge, 25 square feet. 20 feet from the base of the sign to the top, and 13 feet from the road elevation to the top of the sign. And we have a provision in the ordinance that allows a sign to be taller than the standard if it is placed on a plate in an area that's below the road grade. The planning board recommended that column and ground signs be regulated the same within this corridor. Currently, they have different standards, and I'll go through that with a slide in a minute. We'll show all of those. The proposed sign area recommended by the planning board was 60 square feet. The height, or the sign height at 10 feet, and the sign structure at 12 feet, regardless of the sign being ground mounted or column. The planning board also recommended the maximum length of these signs to be no more than 12 feet.
So if that were built today, it'd be out of compliance? Because it's 13 feet? Is that correct?
Because this one is 13 feet, yes, it would be. We have a provision in the ordinance that allows it to be taller, but not more than 10 above.
Right.
So it is. And in fact, Blowing Rock Lodge approached us about updating their sign. I said, if you take 3 feet off the top of that sign, it will be in compliance. And so they're looking at redesigning their sign. Let me get to the table. There's a Firethorn sign, 22 square feet, 8.5 to the top of the sign. Mountaineer log cabins. freestanding signs is 60 square feet. The structure height of freestanding signs is limited to 12 feet above grade. The sign area height is limited to 10 feet above grade, and the overall sign length is limited to 12 feet. For multi-tenant freestanding signs, maximum sign area of single should be changed. For multi-tenant freestanding signs, the maximum sign area is 65 square feet. The structure height of freestanding signs is limited to 14 feet above grade. The sign area height is limited to 13 feet above grade, and the overall sign length is limited to 12. How this sign can be changed, if there were two tenants, this sign could be 65 square feet, 14 feet to the top of the sign above grade, 13 feet to the top of the structure, to the top of the sign area. That's from grade. They still have the provision to be able to change it based on the height above the road, but that still is a maximum of 10 feet. So they have to fit between both parameters. Not more than 10 feet above the road, and whatever the maximum height will be, 14 feet above the structure. So both of those come into play on a sign like this, based on its placement below the grade of the road.
Do you have anything
Clear as
that,
mud?
no, I got it. Do you have anything that's 65 square feet besides the Apsky Mountain? Do you have any examples of that?
The closest one is Alpine Acres at 59.5.
That's the whole thing.
That's all of it combined. Circle and the motel rectangle. And that was 40, but that's the largest sign that's out there today. And they met the ordinance that we have currently.
Other questions? Any questions from the public?
Just for comparison, my own head, do you know the square footage of the sign at the rock? So I can't really tell from that one. It's two circles.
The rock,
Yeah. What would you say that?
I know the top is about 18 feet to the top of it.
No, square footage.
I don't know.
Maybe if you could guess.
It's about 6 feet wide. So probably close to 100 square feet. Let's guess. But if it's 6 feet wide and it's about 18 feet tall, somewhere between 100 and a little over that. And that one's 312. So I guess there is one larger, but it's so out of perspective. It won't be that long. Doesn't really help.
It won't be there long. You're getting close.
Get a good look at it.
Yeah.
Take a picture.
DOT's
Is
getting
it a
close.
military secret what's happening with the Appalachian Ski Mountain project?
They're gonna be applying for building permits pretty soon. And annexation requests coming.
Okay.
David?
Could you go back to the language that you,
Yes. There's a couple things that I just picked up.
I noticed that you're talking about feet above grade, but not feet
questions? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. Motion carries. We'll entertain a motion for action on this.
I'll make a motion, we accept it. I'd like to thank the planning board for working on this, because I know that we've had, since before the first of the year, how hard we've been working on these down through there, and I'd like to thank them for their work that they put in on this.
The only thing we want to change, single tenant to multi-tenant in that,
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
next to last sentence.
Right.
Sort of got.
I'll second.
More we
Thank you.
can understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we study it for 8 or 9 years.
No, I think they did a great job. Thank y'all. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other discussion?
I'll just ask Alan, is this fair to everybody in your opinion? You're familiar with this ordinance?
Is it fair?
Yes. It's not discriminatory, is it?
No.
At all?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a broad question, though.
Okay, if there's no other discussion, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote no. Motion carried. Thank you, council. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, discussion agenda, that item has been removed. Do we have any speakers from the floor, Sharon? Yes. Okay, then that concludes our regular agenda. Anything in departmental meetings we need to know about?
Just one quick update. We did just find out that our financing package for our Public Works building renovation has been approved by the North Carolina Local Government Commission. So we're going to be moving forward with a pre-construction planning meeting this Friday. So we're excited about that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Scott. Okay.
Mayor and council, I make a motion that we enter into closed session consistent with North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 143-318.11A3 to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, vote no. We are now in executive session. Thank you all for being here.